difficult to understand an actor's life because it's so random and haphazard. But now everything's changed because now I have a daughter. So now it's like there's a new girlfriend in the family.
An actor, a producer, an entrepreneur, an environmentalist, Alia Bhatt.
You were saying this is the first in-depth conversation you've done in over 2 years. Why is that and why now? What did little Alia want to be when she grew up?
I was fascinated by the television. I loved dreaming, whether it was in my classroom, whether it was in front of the television. When I started acting and when, your friends are your life, I started working at the age of 17. And when you're newly, pursuing your career, sometimes you start taking your friends for granted.
As humans, we judge ourselves so much, but there's probably no role that we judge ourselves in as much as being a parent. How do you win?
You don't. We're actually all giant babies through our lives, at least for our parents.
Yeah.
Like no matter how old we become, we're still babies.
That's what they see.
I see that now when every time I would travel, my mom would say, okay, be careful before you cross the road.
What's a role that you played that you see yourself in, that most felt like you?
The #1 health and wellness podcast.
Jay Shetty.
Jay Shetty.
The one, the only Jay Shetty.
Alia Bhatt, it is such an honor. I'm so grateful that I get to do this with you. Genuinely so thankful to you. You are an icon. You are phenomenal talent, an unbelievable actress. I feel the roles you choose are out of this world. I'm a huge, huge, huge fan. And I can't wait to dive in to learn more about the person behind all these amazing roles. So thank you for being here on Purpose.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we first met, we met a couple of hours before the Met Gala.
Yeah.
Which I can't imagine how kind that was of you, but how stressful it was for you. Can you just walk me through what that was like?
I think we'd been in touch on Instagram for a while and you very kindly said, if you're in town, I'd love to meet, etc. And I said, okay, let me try and work it out because I was literally in town for 2 days. But I also realized one thing in that moment is I've become very comfortable with just like going about moments and like special like events or shoots and without really having much conversation with people who I don't know. Essentially we don't really know each other. So I've become a bit comfortable just talking to people that I'm comfortable with, that I know, my team, my family, my friends, my loved ones. So I literally took it as it'll be fun, a new experience.
Yeah.
I was not on mommy duty at that time.
Yeah.
So I had the time. Yeah, I was missing her a lot, of course, all the time. So I had the time. And I just thought it would be fun to have breakfast with somebody and just get to know them a little bit,
Yeah.
Apart from the fact that both of us are somehow in the media industry, right? Talking to people and getting to know each other is something that just humans do, which I've not been doing much of, very frankly. So I that's the reason I was like, okay, even though it's a bit stressful right now and I have to get into hair and makeup right now for the next 4 hours, I will still go ahead and do this because it'll be a new experience.
I love that mentality. I think it's such a great mindset. And I remember when I first moved to LA, Brian Grazer, who's a legendary Hollywood producer and creator, he does this thing that he calls curious conversations. And so once a month or whatever it is, he randomly picks someone that he finds interesting and he invites them over to his home to just hang out with.
Wow.
And it's his ability to just be able to have a random conversation, have a random interaction that may or may not lead to something professional. Sometimes it doesn't go anywhere.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like there's no agenda behind
Correct.
it. It's just a conversation.
Yeah.
Which you'd land up. That's so interesting actually. I don't really go for any parties or as such. And even if I go, it's usually just to like show face and like, be there for a couple of minutes and leave. I like to hang out with my close friends and we sit and we talk, and that also doesn't happen very often. So literally, I was saying this to I think a friend of mine the other day, I've forgotten what it is to have a conversation and just ask people questions and have them ask me questions and just exchange and share.
Yeah.
I've always said this before, I'm not good with small talk. And the reason I'm not good with small talk is because I know it's just small and it's specifically for that moment. So I can't really indulge in small talk very well. But conversation I actually can do and I used to do very well. But something's happened in the last couple of years. I'm not sure. I don't know whether it was COVID also in the middle that just sort of isolated all of us into our own cocoons. And then life takes over. I, became a mum. All my energies kind of focused there. I felt like I was retracting a lot, generally, even like, conversation wise. I also have this thing where I take trips within a conversation. Like I take a flight and I come back. But just getting to know people is always it's a different, facet to life and to your day.
Yeah. It almost requires like a different skill set,
It
a different part of
does.
your brain, a different part of your mind. And if you get out of practice, it can feel really hard to do that. How will I know if you... Oh, sorry, go on.
How do you know if I've
I was
taken
going
a
to say, how
flight?
will I know that you've taken a flight?
I think you'd know.
Okay.
You'd know.
Okay.
You'll just see it on my face. Yeah, I also feel like a lot of what I've learned in life is through conversation, one person said this to me, or the other guy was saying this to that guy and I picked this up. I'll pick up more from what I hear through people and our conversations than I do from, of course, from a book and stuff. But I think conversation sticks for me more than the other things.
Yeah,
So I
right.
want to have more more conversations so that more things can stick.
Yeah. Well, you were saying this is the first in-depth conversation you've done in over 2 years.
Yeah.
Why is that and why now?
2022, I remember I had a very fulfilling year, as in it was very beautifully chaotic. There was a lot going on. Many film releases, professionally one thing, but personally I got married, I had a baby. It was a full year. I think that was the last time I promoted 2 films. I remember in 2022, Gangubai, and then...
One of my favorites.
Thank you.
Amazing.
And then Darlings after that.
Amazing also.
But those conversations were very, very kind of, specific to film conversation. I think I overspoke that year. I just felt like I just have spoken so much. I don't have anything more to say professionally. There never came an opportunity where I wanted to, or there was like somebody approached me to just sit down and have a conversation about life. Nothing to do with movies or whatever. So it just didn't happen. But I did stay away from doing interviews in 2023 only because I genuinely didn't have anything new to say professionally. Like, okay, a film is coming out, watch it, there's nothing to say. In fact, a lot of people even said, why have you like shut us out? And I said, I'm not shut anybody out. I just don't have anything new to say. Once I feel like I have something more to say vis-a-vis movies or films, maybe I'll take up an interview or something. Actually, just talking about life, it's not come my way.
Yeah. Well, thank you for trusting us and thanks for doing this. I want to rewind back because I love learning about how who we were in childhood affects who we are today, I think. And now that you're a mother too, I'm sure you can see it, even though it's very early days, just how our early experiences create such impressions on who we become, what we're attracted to. And I wonder, what did little Alia want to be, or who did she want to be when she grew up?
I was fascinated by the television. That's something that I remember very clearly when I was growing up. In fact, my mom and I speak about it right now because she said, my God, was I a horrible mother? Because right now I'm so conscious of my daughter's screen time. Not like she has any major screen time at all. She's not even, looked at the iPad. But like, even if she's watching a song on the television and stuff, I'm like, oh, we should limit the time. And my mother's like, was I a horrible mother? Because we just let you be in front of the TV because like that seemed normal at that time. So I was like, no, you weren't horrible. It was a new phenomenon at that time, perhaps. So, but I'm grateful that she didn't stop me from being in front of the television because a lot of my dreaming and imagining and sort of getting lost in the world started from there. So I love dreaming, and that's my most fondest memory growing up, whether it was in my classroom, whether it was in front of the television, whether it was like on my way to school, on my way to something, just getting lost in my own thoughts, imagining being in front of the camera one day, not like I really knew the intricacies of being an actor or, the layers behind cinema and the shaping of cinema. In fact, one thing I say very candidly is that my cinematic knowledge is not as strong. I have not seen every movie in the book. I don't know every director. I don't know all tech. I'm very popcorn like with my entertainment. Like, oh, good movie, let's watch it, let's enjoy it, you know.
Yeah.
I do have specific actors that I'm very fond of, but I don't have all the answers if you talk about like yesteryear actors and, you know, filmmakers or musicians or anything like that. I don't have all the answers. And growing up also, it's not like I was bookish about it. I didn't study it. I just experienced it through my imagination and like just enthusiasm to be entertained.
Yeah.
So that was a lot of my childhood. And of course, memories with my friends. And that's a very big part of who I am.
Yeah.
Endlessly laughing with my friends, doing random things. Till now, we laugh about the same things
Yeah.
that we laughed about, you know, 15 years ago. So that's really basically what my childhood was all about. You can't change the person's grain, you know. So my grain is to just like enjoy what I call like maza. I just want to have fun. I grew up watching Govinda and Karishma Kapoor
Yes.
dance. So I remember that as a very strong memory in my brain, is that they kept dancing in different spots, sometimes in a garden, sometimes on the road, sometimes on, you know, in the Swiss Alps, and sometimes, and they kept changing their clothes. So I was like, why is anybody stopping them from changing their clothes? Like, you know, or why is anybody stopping them from stopping the traffic and dancing on the road? I didn't really put two and two together and understand that this is a film, is being shot, there's a crew. I was also really little. I think I was like 3 or 4. But I remember this question mark, like what's happening behind that screen? What's happening there? It's fascinating. And that's what really got me very attracted to that being my career in life.
Yeah.
And then I think about it, I'm pretty sure subconsciously, you know, my father's a filmmaker and my mother is a actor, done theater. I'm pretty sure I just was hearing a lot of that conversation in the house, and that must have gotten into my conscience somehow, and that must have become a focus, like interest point. Naturally.
Yeah.
But this connection that I formed with the television, just me and the television, happened very like one-on-one.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. My mom told me that when I was a kid, all I do was watch Maine Pyar Kiya over and over again. Like that was the movie for some reason. I have no idea why. But like that was the movie that I grew up on.
I watched Judai.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. I know that.
Again
Yeah.
and again and again.
Yeah. And it's so weird, right? My mom's always liked to me like, that's what you used to watch. And now I probably watched the movie when I was a bit older, and I was like, it's good, but I don't know why I watched it that many times. And I was probably that young age as well. And it's amazing how there's lasting impressions from that.
The most important moments in my life, you just want these people around you. You don't want many people around you. You just want your really close friends around you and your family around you. It's definitely ever evolving, the feeling of motherhood. When you speak about surprises, there are multiple surprises on a daily basis.
Would you say that you were always a confident kid and teenager, or did that take time to build?
I was pretty confident. I don't think I had confidence issues. I was very happy on my own. You know, when you're in school, sometimes you find the need to be like, hang out in groups. Although I had a very healthy group, my friends would always make fun of me and say, why are you always walking alone? You always end up walking alone with a frown on your face, because my resting face is a frown.
Right.
So a lot of the times people think I'm upset about life. And actually, I'm not upset about life. I'm just living life because my resting face is a frown. So I'm on my phone doing something and they're like, what happened? Did something happen? I'm saying, no, everything's fine. But my face is like this. So that's my resting face. So I was very comfortable being on my own, doing my own thing as I am now. And I think that's also a second child thing, is what, from what I understand, is because you're obsessive about the first child and the second child just grows up, you know, because you're like, I can't do it all over again the same way. At least the parent is like that. I don't know, but that's what I've understood and I've heard. And I think a lot of that rubbed off on me because I know my sister and I respond to situations very differently. And I'm always way more, let it be, who cares, you know. Yeah, so about things. And she's, but no, but why? But, you know, and all of that.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, how people can see being alone as being distant when, like you're saying, it's actually...
I mean, that does happen sometimes, that people do might feel that because I'm a bit of like, I'm happy being on my own, that there is some like distance, or there's a feeling of not wanting to engage. I don't think I don't want to engage. It's just like I'm very comfortable like staying silent as well.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and that's what would happen in school. It's not like I would not want to hang out with my friends, but I was okay also just walking by myself. I didn't need to hold somebody's hand and walk. And I think that said a lot about just my dreamer personality, what I was talking about earlier.
Yeah.
And gives me the space to sort of float a bit.
And you were talking about friendship, which I think is such an important part of our lives, and it seems to be such an important part of yours. How have are those friends that you had then, I assume they're the same friends you have now? They're people that you've kind of grown up with?
Yeah, the exact same friends.
What's their life look like? Like, are they all in the industry too? Are they doing different things? Like,
So most of them aren't. Just my best friend, Akansha, she's also an actor. We all have live in different parts of the world. Like 4 of us live in Mumbai. One of my best friends, she lives in New York. The other lives in Toronto. One lives in London. One lives in Singapore. We're a group of 9 girls. And honestly, the reason I have to give them a lot of credit, because the reason I can still say they're my best friends and we're so close is because of the patience that they've given me. You know, my journey as an actor started very early. I started working at the age of 17. And when you're newly, pursuing your career, your focus becomes your career. And even though I always made it a point to hang out with my friends, sometimes you start taking your friends for granted. And that naturally did happen. And of course, the great thing is the same things that we used to fight about 10 years ago is the same thing that we possibly fight about today. So what's lovely is nothing's changed. But what's also lovely is that there's still something to fight for, and I do give them a lot of credit for that, for just being patient with me, showing up, even though many times I can't show up because I'm working or I'm here or I'm there, making excuses for me when I'm unable to be at a particular, getaway or a party or a dinner. But I do my bit to, reconcile and, make up for it. But yeah, they're really like my family. And that's something that's very clear, that when you make friends that stay with you for so long, they're your family. And a lot of people told me that, actors don't really have friends. I don't know.
People said that.
Yeah. So I was like, but why? This is in the beginning when I started acting, and when your friends are your life. But that usually doesn't happen because you land up leading such isolated lives, and you're so busy. It's very difficult to hold on to the earlier friendships. Also, it's difficult to understand an actor's life or somebody who's in the industry, their life, because it's so random and haphazard. So props to them for really, they've really, and they've made an effort to even understand my work. But now everything's changed because now I have a daughter, so now it's like there's a new girlfriend in the family. And now it's all about they don't even want to talk to me. They just want to talk to her. I was FaceTiming my friend yesterday who was in New York, and we were FaceTiming, and Raha was there, my daughter, and her foot was in my face. And I was trying to talk about something very serious. And she's like, I'm sorry, I just can't focus because I'm only looking at Raha's foot, which is in your face. Yeah.
I love that. I want to talk about Raha in a second. But when you were talking about your friends, I don't have an actor's life, but my life is also on a plane, traveling, moving around. And I speak to my best friend, who was my best man at my wedding, probably 3 times a week. And I completely agree with you. It's all because of him. Because when I call him, he'll make time. He'll shift his schedule. He'll be available to figure out a way. And because of that, it allows me and us to maintain this friendship when, I left living in London 8 years ago. And we've been able to, with all our time zone issues and everything else, maintain this friendship that we've had for 20 years now.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful to him, because you're so right that if individuals like that, and again, we do our own part and make up for it. And now I'm flying to Dubai to go and see him because he now moved to Dubai. And so I'm making sure that I go and take out a few days to just catch up with him. Yeah.
Like when I met you in New York for breakfast, the day before that, I spent the whole day with my friend Meghna, who's my New York friend. So the 2 days that I was there, I made sure that I met her on the one whole day that I was there. And it's like you do your best, but I know in my heart that they're doing better. And I'm very grateful to them for that. And whenever it feels like, because it's life's give and take, right? Whenever it feels like one's taking too much and the other's giving too much, we find a way to balance it out.
Yeah.
It is something that really grounds me. And I remember, like, at the most important moments in my life, you just want these people around you. You don't want many people around you. You just want your really close friends around you and your family around you.
Yeah, you're so right. What was it like with your wedding, with having them there? Was that like a special experience?
Yeah, we got married at home at our house where we were living together and are still living currently. And it was like 40 people, and my girlfriends were like 9 out of the 40 people and their plus ones. And it was amazing, and it's one of the fondest memories that I've had. But like, I remember even when I was in hospital, like after I'd given birth and everything, like I asked my sister, have you told the girls, have you informed them? It's the first, it comes to my mind, like these things, they're sort of embedded in me, in my body. And even though it's not every day, even though it's not every week that we hang out and meet or speak as often, they're a part of my life.
Yeah.
In a very deep way.
Now, I'm not surprised that any of your friends want to ignore you and talk to Raha, because she's so adorable. I was just telling you, I saw this video of you. I think you and Ranbir and her were traveling, and the paps were like waving at her and said hi, and then she waved back and said hi, and it was the most adorable thing. I sent it to my wife straight away. I was like, look how cute she is. Like, she's adorable. And how has motherhood been for you so far? I remember, like you said, in New York, you were missing her.
Yeah.
Like, I remember you talked about her so much. Like, how has it been for you? What has been a surprise? And what has been something that you expected it to be that way?
I don't think you can prepare yourself for what you're about to feel. To be very honest, my mother said this to me earlier before I gave birth. She said, I said, do you remember something? And she's like, no, I don't remember. I said, why don't you remember anything? She said, because you'll be surprised, you forget. You forget what happens before. I've forgotten a lot of what it was pre-motherhood in terms of my feeling or my way of life or the way my brain functioned at that time. My days are so full now. In fact, I wonder what I was doing with my time earlier. Even if I was not working, what was I doing in the day? Because now it's a full day. Like, wake up at 7 o'clock in the morning, and she's asleep by 8:39, and I'm asleep soon after by 10:30. From 7 to 10:30, it's like you're on a treadmill. It's just like you're running. When you speak about surprises, there are multiple surprises on a daily basis currently, because she's a toddler. She's a 2-year-old right like now. She's just turned 2. So now she's really bubbling.
Yeah.
There's a lot of surprises every day. It's definitely ever evolving, the feeling of motherhood. But I think one thing I can say for sure, and it is a good thing, but sometimes it can also be a bad thing. Bad is the wrong word, but like, it can also be something that people have to put up with, is that I think I've just, of course, become very incessantly protective ever since she was born. So I remember the earlier months after she was born, it was bliss for me. I really enjoyed the instant sort of survival, like this being needs me to survive at this moment, so that very survival sort of nurturing feeling, even though there were sleepless nights, etc. And of course, I have to acknowledge the fact that I'm hugely privileged in that aspect, that I have help and I have a great support system and all of that. But that instant sort of bonding period, I deeply enjoyed it, but I was also filled with so much worry. And that's something that I have to talk about very openly. And that's a very normal feeling, is what I understand, for mothers to feel, especially new mothers to feel. But what I also learned with time is that the worry doesn't go away. It just changes form. And depending on your personality as to how anxious your mind is, or whether you're able to deal with certain situations better, it might move forward differently. But it's a beautiful combination of feeling extreme love with extreme worry. there's a lot of worry. And by worry, and I mean, I don't feel like I'm stressed out or I'm like stressing her out. I think I become pretty childlike when I'm with her. One thing I'm pretty mindful about is to really enjoy her childhood. You know, a lot of parents who have kids, 18-year-olds, 20-year-olds, keep telling me, enjoy this time, enjoy this time. In fact, in New York, I met a woman in an elevator who was there to drop her son off to college. And I was holding Raha in my hand, who was, not when I was there for the Met, right after. I was holding Raha in my hand, and, you know, Raha was fidgeting with her, and she said to me, just enjoy this time. I'm dropping my son off to college and time just flies. And I could see the pain in her eyes. So I really take that advice very seriously about enjoying the time. So I really try and be very present with Raha, which is something that I don't do very often in my other, you know, moments in life. I'm always like, people always telling me, you've left the building, you've reached home. I'm always like 10 steps ahead. But with her, I try to be a lot like in the present and in the moment. And it happens more naturally because I want to enjoy every second. But there is a sense of like, you know, I'm always like, my heart is just way wide open, and I'm just like always worried about something or the other vis-a-vis her. But I'm guessing that's something that I'm just going to have to like live with for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
What we don't realize is our parents are also just, what we were discussing, giant babies. You're so used to like thinking about your life like this, like this is my moment and my this and that. And when you just you think about it on a larger scale, all the worry just disappears. So when I look at the struggle and the suffering that there is in the world, it really makes me count my blessings and be so grateful for everything that we have in our lives, because it's hard for people in the world.
What's it been like to see Ranbir become a dad, and a girl dad especially? Like,
He's amazing. He's very creative when it comes to entertaining her. She entertains him as well. Like, they both have a very special friendship, I would say. Their bond is not like, you'd feel like they're two friends, like either two adults or two toddlers, you know, at different moments in life. And he's like, literally, when he looks at Raha, it's like stars in his eyes. There's that. And of course, for any parent, but when I see it, because I've known Ranbir pre and I know him now, I see the difference. I see the difference in the way he is with people, you know, as a father. He's just so sort of full, you know. It's not like he was ever edgy or ever, he always had a very calm demeanor or anything, but there's a fullness which I've experienced firsthand and that I see on a daily basis. And it's actually really sweet and special to, you know, watch their conversations. And very often I'm just like sneakily, you know, videotaping a lot of their random moments, and they don't even know I'm doing it. Eventually, I guess one of them looks at the camera and then I put it off. But it's just the beginning. But the beginning is just so unique and special, at least from where I'm sitting and from what I've seen. And just to watch your partner also manifest love in that way is very interesting.
Go on, what do you mean?
I mean, we have love for each other, right? I have love for Ranbir. Ranbir has love for me. I have love for Raha. Raha has love for me and Ranbir. And Ranbir has love for Raha. So it's, you see different moments of love transpire differently in one house, under one roof. And it wasn't always like this, right? Like, Raha's come into our life now. So you know the before and the after, although I don't remember much of it, like as I mentioned earlier. But you know moments and you know feelings and you know how like we've watched sunsets together, but now when we're watching the sunset with her, it's a different feeling. You know, it's a very beautiful feeling. It's very fulfilling.
So sweet. You're making me feel like I've got so much to look forward to. So I'm like, no, I'm like, I always tell Radhi, I'm like, I want to be a girl dad so bad. Like,
And he really wanted to be a girl dad. Yeah, he really did. I'm doing this thing where I send Raha emails. I've been doing it since she's born, every month. And like, just like an amalgamation of like photos and videos and what happened and just thoughts and feelings.
Wow,
and
that's
it's
so
like,
cool.
It's somebody said that this was somebody. So I was like, that's a great idea, because it's like a live memory book. I don't have the discipline and the energy to actually fill out a physical memory book. So I thought this is like a digital way of doing
It's
it.
easier to search.
It's easier,
as well.
yeah.
when she's-
And it's nice. Like when maybe she's 15, I'd give this to her and say, listen, this is all the memories that we collected for you over the years, and go ahead and have some fun.
What a special gift. What kind of things have you put in there right now?
Just like photos, videos, thoughts, mainly just visuals of her with either like us, with either one of us, or her grandparents, or, her aunt or uncles and stuff like that. And just random moments, and like a little note that you did this today, and, we had such a lovely trip here and something happened, and just sharing.
Yeah.
Whatever I can. It's like within the moments, whatever comes out at that time. But yeah, so when I'm sneakily recording the two of them, it's and I sometimes when I review it, and it's really very heartwarming to watch, because that this is like something very special is just cooking. Like I remember in New York, we were speaking about this, and I remember my mom sent me a photo of like a baby walking down the street with like many bags. Like it was like a random, like a Pinterest image or something. And I discussed this with you, and we said, we actually both agreed that we're actually all giant babies through our lives, at least for our parents. Like no matter how old we become, we're still babies.
That's what they see.
That's what they see. And I see that now, I see that now when every time I would travel, my mom would say, okay, be careful before you cross the road, take care of your
And we
arms
get
and
so
legs.
frustrated.
Yeah, I'm like, what do you say? What do you mean take care of your arms and legs? But I understand that now.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not a parent, but everything you're saying to me, even when I think about it for a second, I think I'd be exactly the same. I'm like that with my friends' kids. Like if my friends' children are over, and I remember my friends, I can't remember what they were doing, something called adventure parenting or something. I can't remember. There's one of these parenting techniques. So we're sitting at one end of a living room. The kid is at the other end of the living room. And she's like just learned to walk, but she's like putting her hands through candles like this. And so I'm about to run over and like take their kid away from the candle. And they're like, no, she'll learn. And that was their parenting technique.
Okay.
And my heart was like, and it's not even my child, but I'm feeling so much.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm constantly like, whenever I see kids running around, again, friends' kids in my home or whatever, I'm like looking for their heads to not bump against the table. Like I find myself even being that way now, so I can't imagine when it's your own child. Like,
one thing is worry for the physical danger or within the moment. But the other worry is also worry whether you're doing your parenting bit right. Worry whether you're giving them the right tools to go with. And she's so small right now. She's 2. So there's no need for me to be thinking about all of this. But every moment is a learning, right? If I'm trying to impart some sort of life knowledge to her in a specific moment, say she's dealing with an emotion and I need to help her deal with it. Because basically what from what I've understood is that this is where they really start like pushing their boundaries and understanding the world, and instead of confining them to specific emotions that this is the way you're supposed to be and this is the way you're not supposed to be, you help them deal with every emotion, specific, because happiness is easy to deal with, but the other ones are not, right? And it starts now. It starts very early. So giving her the tools to deal with these emotions, I need to have those tools myself as well, number one. Number 2, I think this is where my, fast forwarding to the future happens, is that I know I can't be a perfect parent. And from what I understand is I can just be good enough, but I have to be able to be so present and one with her feeling what she's feeling, asserting certain values and behaviors, but also just letting her be, So there's so many of these permutation combinations that I'm just like constantly toying with. So that's one other worry about like just future and life. And then of course there's this physical thing. And then is she eating well and is she sleeping well? And what's going to happen tomorrow and what's going to happen day after? And I'm also a working mom. Again, I have to acknowledge my privilege. I do have a great support system around her. But the worry is not going to leave, like, if I'm away, is somebody going to say something? Is she going to pick up on something that I would not want her to pick up on? All those things. But, you just take each day as it comes and just
Yeah.
move forward. So I guess the reason I'm speaking about it is because it's a very real feeling, and it's not something that I've just
Yeah.
got figured out since day one. I'm constantly sort of wrapping my head around it on a daily basis. But apart from that, it's joyous.
No, I appreciate you being so honest about it, because I think the worry point, and especially what you raised, this idea that as humans we judge ourselves so much, but there's probably no role that we judge ourselves in as much as being a parent, because you can almost really see how this innocent, beautiful being is taking on so much of your energy, your words, your behavior, the environment. And I think that almost makes us so mindful and thoughtful, because with our partners, with our parents, we can, we can kind of be a bit lax, and
Of course.
sometimes we can say things we don't mean or whatever. But when you're with a child, it's almost like you realize how precious
Yeah.
they are, and how those exchanges are. And it's so interesting what you're saying, this idea of self-judgment. And it's fascinating, because I've met people who've said, my parents were always around and gosh, it was really, really hard. And then I meet other people who say, my parents were never around and it was really, really hard. And then you hear, my parents
Yeah.
forced me to study this and I don't like them for it. And then someone says, my parents forced me to study this and I love them for it. And it's almost like you kind of look at that and you go, well, how do you win?
You don't,
Yeah.
though. That's the thing, because human beings are hard. What we don't realize is our parents are also just what we were discussing, giant babies. So we're all figuring. I know I'm a mother right now, and it's not like I've got it all figured out. And I have, by all figured out, I mean, it's not like, I have all the answers to life, for every particular issue. Most definitely do not. I'm very grateful for the life that we have and the comfort that we enjoy. And I'm so much more grateful after becoming a mom. It's so surprising how I think when we were talking about what's surprising, I always found myself to be somebody who had, a decent amount of empathy. But I think the empathetic quotient just truly multiplies once you're a mom, because you picture your child in every situation. So when I look at the struggle and the suffering that there is in the world, it really makes me count my blessings and be so grateful for everything that we have in our lives, because it's hard for people in the world. And it's not, I'm always somebody who likes to believe in the good and the positivity, and I'm always trying to put out, there's light at the end of the tunnel, and it's going to rain because the sun can shine. That's my belief. And you only appreciate the sunshine when these are all great quotes for Instagram, but when it's real life, and you see the suffering and the struggle that some people have to go through, you really have to take a second and be like, wow, everything's good. Just cut to a wide shot and everything is great. In fact, very often what I do, especially when I'm having a bad day, I have this little balcony at the back of my bedroom, and it's like really small. It's more like a fire exit or something, and I just go and stand there, and I can see because in Bombay, a lot of the buildings, especially where I live, are like very close together. So this might sound a little creepy, but when I go and stand there, I just have like a wide view of activity in different people's homes. Somebody's walking with some clothes, somebody's watching television. I'm not looking into their bedrooms, but it just gives me a sense of life existing whilst yours is. And it just puts a lot of things into perspective, because you're so used to thinking about your life like this, like this is my moment and my this and that. And when you just cut and you think about it on a larger scale, all the worry just disappears. And you take a second and you just feel very grateful for where you are in life.
Yeah, I could tell how much that was.
Yeah.
You look on the verge of tears.
I mean, that's what I'm saying when I talk about it, because that's how much maybe internal worry I have. Just as a person, for people in the world, and also for most importantly for my loved ones and for my daughter. But that's how my world has opened up, I think, post being a mom.
Yeah.
Way more aware about the other life that exists as opposed to your own.
Yeah. Have you thought about things you want to do or get involved in to help the communities or people that you're noticing or things like that?
I mean, I'd rather do and not talk, because sometimes it feels like you're talking to make a point, just to see what a great person I am. I think there's definitely I can be a way nicer person on a daily basis and way more helpful. But I do whatever I can do and help however I can help, whether it's, for people, for animals, whatever I can do. But of course, I think I'm probably just not even scratching the surface. There's way more that I can do on a daily basis.
No, I appreciate that. I think all of us can and feel that way.
Yeah.
And you're right, it's better to do and not talk. So I appreciate your humility in that way and keeping it that way. I was thinking about this idea, this concept you brought back from our conversation, which shows that you're a good listener and have a great memory, because the fact that you're recalling our conversation from like nearly a year ago now, if not 2 years. Maybe
a year ago.
A year ago now.
Now 2 years. So we're in 2025.
Right?
Correct. 2 years ago.
Right? It was 2023, no? Or not, maybe 2023.
23.
23. And so like this big
24.
baby. 24. Was it 24? Yeah, maybe
24.
It's 24. Maybe it's 24. But this big baby idea, what parts of yourself do you think you're still babying or that are still a baby in your own self emotionally?
Oh, I think I still experience, speaking just about movies and cinema, because I think when I watch a movie, I experience it like like a child would. I am not measured with my emotions or my responses. In fact, very often I'm like, if I'm watching whoever I'm watching, whether it's Ranbir or my sister or something, I'm like, what's going to happen now? Why is she doing that? They're like, we did not make the movie, we don't know. But I'm like, I'm just so involved in it, and I just need to know. So I'm like chatting through it. So I think in that way,
so Ranbir is like a silent watcher.
Ranbir is, he between the two of us is much better, vis-a-vis his cinema knowledge and movies, and he's way more diligent with it. In fact, a lot of my movie watching experiences is shared with him and because of him. Yeah, but like I'm like always, and then he's like, we'll find out. I don't know. Same with my sister. I'm like, Shine, why is this happening? And she's like, I don't know, Alia, I did not make it. So in that sense, I'm very physically involved. So I'm not like an adult watching a movie and all. I'm a child. I think still this would happen to me as a child, as a kid a lot, is that if I'm like exhausted, tired, I would just cry. And not realize why I'm crying. And I'm like, everything is horrible. And my mother would be like, darling, are you tired? Do you need... I said, I'm just, everything's a bit hard. So that happens to me when I'm tired. Even now, I'll suddenly like just start weeping about something completely random.
Yeah.
And it happened to me a couple of weeks ago, actually. I was with my friends and I just started crying about something not being right. And they're like, are you okay? And they're like, I'm just tired. Like I not had a good night's sleep. Yeah. So that happens to me a lot. I think also curiosity. I don't think my curiosity has left me. I can see that now, as when like with Raha and stuff, she always wants to know, but why doing that? Why is that? Who's that? Who's that person? Like always wants to know everything. I want to know the conversation that's happening across the room between two people that I know, of course. And I'm like watching them speak and, like trying to read and then like lip read what they're saying to each other. And if I couldn't understand bits of it, then I just ask, what happened? Who said what? You know, so the curiosity is still alive.
Yeah. Radhi does it with people we don't know. We'll be at a restaurant, she'll be like, let's pretend we know what conversation they're having and let's have it with
I
each
love
other.
doing that.
She loves doing that.
I love doing that.
I'm like, just talk to me, man. Like she's like, no, this is more interesting. Let's do this. So I'm like, all right then.
Especially if somebody's having a fight, then you want to overhear even more.
Yeah. She's like, what do you think they're talking about? Let's pretend to have their conversation. I'm like, I don't know what they're talking about. I know nothing about them.
Like, it's okay, whatever, healthy baby, that's all we want.
Of course. Yeah.
And
that is the number one
priority.
priority.
Yeah.
No, that is the number one priority.
Yeah.
You're right. A healthy child is the most important priority. But there's particular things. And Radhi is one of two girls. So she's kind of she's like okay with that. And so, but you had no preference. You were like kind of like, whatever comes.
Yeah, I was like, just health. You know, that time I was just thinking about like health, everything goes well, smoothly. But of course, I think she's really, like I said, even for my girl gang, they were like so excited. We're going, we have one girls' trips are now going to be so different. You know, my best friend, one of my best friends is getting married this year, and she's like, "Are you coming?" She's like, "Yeah." She's like, "I don't care if you're coming. I hope Raha's coming." I was like, "Yeah, Raha's coming."
I love that. What's has Raha already watched any of your movies already?
No, she's too small to like watch
Even-
a full movie. She's
Yeah.
watched multiple songs of mine and Ranbir's, and now we've sort of exposed her to other people's songs as well. But I think now she's got this feeling that everything is our song. In fact, the other day, some song played, and I was like, oh, it was like, I think it was a Shah Rukh Khan song from Mohabbatein, and I was like, oh, doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. I was doing some dance step, and she's like, Mama, your song? So I was like, no, Mama, Papa's song? So I was like, no, this is Shah Rukh Khan's song.
She's like,
So she was not sure.
you've played so many powerful women on screen, so many. And I've always admired you for the choices of roles you've played. I think I said that to you when we first met. What's the one you are excited for her to see? Is there one movie that you think, I can't wait for her to be able to watch this? And obviously at different ages, she'll be able to watch different ones. But
I mean, when she's much older, I'd want her to, and in her own time, watch the films that really sort of shaped me as an actor and the experiences that I learned a lot from. Like, for example, a film like Highway, and a film like Gangubai, or a film like Razi.
Razi, I was about to say.
But in fact, I recently realized that I don't have many some of them, but like very like child-friendly
Yeah, no,
films.
definitely.
You
Yeah, that's
know?
why I was saying that
Yeah.
at a certain age.
Yeah. So in fact, that has made me want to take up a film that is loved by kids, or that is like a kid-friendly film.
Yeah.
It's recently made me want to do that, and I'm on the hunt.
Yeah, because now you're looking at your filmography and going, God, she's going to have to be 18 years old to watch one of
Exactly.
these.
So I was like, yeah, she can watch a couple of films. I'm not sure how much she'd want to watch, like Gangubai
No, I
and
don't- yeah.
Highway at this age, or not this age, or even when she's 4 or 5 or 6. I wanted to enjoy films that are like. So I know Brahmastra is a film that kids liked a lot. Like when I meet kids now, they say Brahmastra, or they say like Rocky Rani, and I like your this song. Kids they like songs.
Songs, yeah.
I remember, like, I grew up watching songs. I mean, my memory is more so of music. And that really leaves a long-lasting impressions. That's one thing that I feel very grateful for, is that I can sing to my daughter. I mean, I'm glad I have a decent voice, because very often, she demands songs out of me, and I'm just like singing, and I'm like, especially when I'm putting her to sleep. So yeah, now I'm on the hunt to do like more kid-friendly.
Yeah, I love that. I could see you doing a voiceover too of an animation or
Oh yeah, I'd
something
love
like
that.
Yeah,
I'd love that.
That would be super fun. I could see you do that. What's a role that you played that you see yourself in that most felt like you? Is there a role that you played that feels like you personality-wise?
I don't say this. A lot of the
friends.
people who love me and who know me say this, and it's going to sound bizarre, but they say I'm Gangu.
No way.
Yeah, they say that that's my alter ego. The personality, the boisterousness, the way she, not her situation, of course, not her circumstances, but the way she, and I think that's also somehow there was like a nice push and pull in playing that part. She was very gangster. She was very. I think that is my alter ego. I don't think that that's the way I am in my real life. But it is definitely the part that I enjoyed depicting the most. In a sort of humorous way, a lot of my friends and people say, "You're Gangu, she's Gangubai," and they say that. But I think there is some truth to that. Only I guess from the essence of the fact that she's a child, but she's got a certain like.
Yeah, she's got some spice.
Yes, exactly.
And some some
Pizzazz.
fieriness. And then what's a character or role that you played that you'd like to borrow some energy from?
So I think at this particular moment, I need some playful, bubbly energy, which is like sort of superficial, if you call it, or frivolous, or it's just like
silly. Yeah.
So I was actually thinking about this the other day, but I feel like I need some of that. So
Rocky Orani had a bit of that.
Rocky Rani had that, but she was also a little like a journalist, a little. So maybe I can take it from Rocky's character, not from Rani so much. But there's this character that I played in Humpty Sharma ki Dulhania. Her name is Kavya. I was actually watching a song of that the other day, and I was like, I don't remember who, that girl was at that time, that feeling. Not like I feel like I'm like old or something like that, but there was like a silliness there that I feel that I can do more with, because I think I was pretty silly. And now I've just become a little bit more in control at most times, which I think I can do with some silliness.
Yeah. I feel like when I met my wife, I was like, I took life very seriously, and she's like just silly and playful all the time. And it's so helpful having that, because otherwise you're so right. You just kind of get stuck in your ways.
But honestly, because you asked character, so I said I named this character because I was also watching this song the other day. But actually, when I have my daughter in front of me, and I get that silliness from her.
From her, yeah.
So actually, I just, like I was saying earlier, I just tune into that moment with her. I just need to do it more for me though, like for my vibe, and not just when I'm with her.
Yeah.
Be more open to a silly joke as well.
Yeah.
And like crack a silly joke, if at all. I think I don't do that anymore.
Okay.
Yeah. It's become a bit it's becoming a bit too grown up.
Yeah. Are you someone that energizes when you're on your own, or energizes when you're around people?
Certain people can really energize me.
Yeah.
But I think I'm mostly energized on my own.
Yeah.
More than a certain number of people, I think, can really drain the energy out.
Yeah.
And that does tend to happen. Say if I've gone on a promotional tour for a film, because you're just meeting so many people and you're engaging. By the end of it, I'm just drained. You're just zapped, because you're just constantly engaging so much. I think I'm also one of those people who is very, I think of there being like this sort of twinkly light in front of me, where I feel like I can take people's energy in pretty quickly. I'm not somebody who's just blocked off to everybody's energy. So if somebody's walked into the room and they're not having a bad day, that'll reach me very quickly. If something has happened, which is a like chaotic situation, it's not like I can block it off.
Yeah.
So I'm very receptive to people's energies. So I can, almost like it comes right to me. So, which is why I maybe prefer to not engage as much and to stay out of most conversations, and or to speak to just the people that I'm most comfortable with, because I'm familiar with their energy. There's nothing new there.
What do you do with the energy when it comes to you and you're sensing
when it's new?
Yeah.
Oh, it does. I behave very weirdly sometimes. I really do I've noticed that about myself later on. I'm like, why did I behave so weird in that moment? And like a friend, like somebody who knows me very well, would be like, I find it strange talking to you at parties sometimes, Alia, because you can behave really strange and say some very strange things, because I'm so confused with the different multiple energies. I don't know what to do with them, But what helps is your surround system and the people that are around you, especially the team that I work with. They know me so well that even if I'm having a day like that, that's why it's very important for me when I'm working with a particular team for me to be very comfortable with them. Because if I'm not comfortable with them, all this will add to my daily energy zapping, Again, it seems like I'm talking about all my energy and my things, that they might have their own day. And I'm very receptive to that as well. And everybody's sensitive to everybody. Here, because I'm talking about myself, I just thought that it's important to find a way to go through the day where you do your own thing and you don't demand too much from people. And likewise, vice versa, I don't demand too much from people as well when I'm going about my day.
When did your self-care and mental health advocacy work begin? Like, what was it that led you in that direction where you started to prioritize self-care, talk about anxiety, talk about mental health? Like, when did that become important for you and why?
I think my sister, she was a huge part of that, I think. And obviously, I'm doing it at a very small level. Whenever I can talk about it through my own lens, I do. Shaheen, my sister, wrote a book. It's called I've Never Been Unhappier. And she's, lived with depression since she was 13 and has built some amazing tools in life to be where she's at today. And she speaks about it beautifully. So something about her honesty inspired me to talk about it, not in a way where you seem like you're complaining about your life, because again, you're not in a position to complain, you have it all, but just to talk about it so that somebody somewhere watching might just resonate with it
Yeah.
and feel like, oh, okay, I was having the same day, or I have the same feelings. So I'm not alone.
Yeah.
Everybody feels it. It's happened very often with me where I've seen some A-list celebrity, Hollywood, international, or like even here, speak about something, and I've resonated or connected with that, and I was like, oh, they're feeling it as well. So it's happened. It happens with all of us. So that's when I think I became more open to talk about having any specific anxiety. And also I was recently clinically diagnosed with it. So I had a proper
Wow.
backing for me to not just say I'm just having an anxious day. Okay, it's not just that. ADHD and anxiety. And I actually seeked it out only because I was actually finding it very hard. My body was heating up in social gatherings, and I was like physically responding to it. So I was also finding it very hard to focus on certain things, and my focus was going in and out. And then I realized that I gave myself a lot of credit for being an amazing multitasker. And then I realized that, yeah, I can multitask, but it does take a toll on me.
Yeah.
And I need to understand why it's taking a toll on me, because I'm forgetting the most random things, like things that I have scheduled, I'm forgetting. Why am I forgetting these things? So I did a test, a professional test, not like some random personality test or something, over 3 days. And, I was diagnosed with ADHD and anxiety. And immediately I was happy. My ADHD in me gave me information, right? So whenever there's lack of information is when I get most thrown off. So I'm always seeking information, comfort, very averse to change. So the minute I was aware of these things, it's actually made the dealing much simpler.
Yeah.
And I'm not on any medication or anything, although I can be, but I chose not to. And I'm actually just actively working on it to help get through it.
Yeah.
And I think I manage pretty well.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I mean, I think it's so useful for people to hear that, because as you said, we always think everyone else is doing just fine. And especially at parties and events, it's fascinating to me how many people who go to these, whether award shows, whatever it may be, the amount of people who say to me, I am so anxious, and everyone's feeling that way. Everyone's going through it. Everyone's worried about what they're wearing, how they look, how the night's going to be, who they're going to bump into. Like, it's so incredible that everyone's feeling the same way, yet everyone's trying to act normal. And so I think, people like yourself sharing that you feel it, you experience it, and also how a diagnosis can actually relieve you of that pressure.
It does.
Yeah, and relieve you of that stress.
Because it makes you feel like, there's a lot of noise, there's a lot of chatter in your brain, and you feel like, is it just my brain, or is it just something that is happening to me today? And the minute you find an answer to it, you feel like, oh, it's not something that I was just making up for myself.
That's what it is.
Yeah, and I think it's comforting. It's
Yes.
comforting to know that you had an inclination that something was holding you back from going about your day in a specific way, and now there's an answer to it.
Yes.
You get the comfort, and then you put specific sort of, structures in place in your life to help you get through that. And whatever that may be, to each his own. I chose to find ways to center myself through different ways, and use the support of my team to like maybe delegate a little bit more, do things so that I'm not, and remind me about certain things, all those little things. So I was like forgetting the most random things. But I think the need for getting it more in order came after being a mom, because I was like, I don't want to forget anything related to my daughter. I think that was my big fear. Again, parenting pressure that you put on yourself, etc. But yeah, that happened, I think, last year, and it's been a while since that happened. The reason I also again talk about it is not to seem like, oh, I'm having such a hard time and look at me and like, feel bad for me. It's none of that. And I think a lot of the times it's me and my sister, when we sit and talk about it, it's not like we're only talking to each other about how we're struggling, but it'll just somehow come up when we're talking about this happening, and it's just understood that it's because of XYZ reason. So the next time you talk about it, there's no need to explain again. So it's like an unsaid conversation. So I think the reason I'm also talking about it is that maybe a lot of the times I might respond a certain way in a public event or a gathering or a situation or a conversation or a talk. And maybe I'm responding because of XYZ reason.
Yeah, for sure. And you were reminding me of something when you talked about multitasking. There was a study that showed that only 2% of the population, the world population, can actually multitask. But when 98% of people hear that, they think they're that 2%. And so everyone thinks that they can multitask, but really it's such a rare ability.
I actually realize I cannot multitask.
I definitely can't.
I can't because I can't. So I can take up multiple projects.
Yeah, at the same time.
And I can be diligent. The word is I can micromanage. I can micromanage multiple things.
Yeah.
But I definitely cannot multitask.
No, definitely.
I thought I could always multitask, but I can't.
Yeah. No, but it's what you said. The trick is you think you can do it and you can probably do it for some time. But what you don't realize is that battery runs out. And then very quickly you realize you can't do it at all. And so maybe you can do it for a day, or maybe you could do it for an hour or two.
Maybe with certain things. I mean, I would always say, I think, women are always used to multitasking and all. Maybe we are. I don't know. I would say this, but I've grown to realize about myself that, in fact, I almost stop hearing one thing if I'm focusing on the other. It's like, my brain just shuts the other part down.
Yeah. What have been some daily practices or habits that have changed your life, that have really helped you deal with the crazy schedule, now becoming a mother, playing all the different roles that you play? What have been some non-negotiables that you've really had to hone in on?
I have to be very frank here because there have been multiple habits that I tried to set in place for myself, but I've not followed through with either. So I'm one of those people who hasn't been able to... when I'm not talking about getting a workout in, or that's like a daily habit which has become like a part of my life now. It's not even a habit. Looking outside the window and listening to music and really unwinding. I'm not talking about those things because that's life. But like for a brief period, I used to write things down so I could remember it. I don't do that anymore. For a brief period, I used to meditate because it used to help center me. I don't do that anymore. For a brief period, I used to color and paint whenever I used to feel anxious. I don't do that anymore. I just don't do anything anymore. So I'm actually... Because I
love
think,
that honesty.
Yeah, because a lot of people sometimes feel like, especially now, because 2025 started the new year, you need to set New Year resolutions. You need to do something new. You need to, take control of your life in this particular way. There is that pressure to do that and do that and do that and do that. And in fact, there was this challenge called the 75 hard that I heard about. And I was like, I'm going to do the 75 hard. And, I'm going to do this. And my sister was like, Alia, you're not, because you have enough going on. Now you don't need one more challenge. You're a mom and you're working and you're doing, right now, others might be able to, specifically you do not need to take this on. And I was like, why am I going to take it on? Because again, I'm going to be compelled to go through with it. And I'm not going to be able to go through it. And then I'm going to feel like a failure, which is fine. I'm okay with feeling like a failure. But, why do I add something more to my plate? So I've just realized to cut the clutter, do what comes naturally. So there's nothing new that I can speak about as a non-negotiable. Because I haven't stuck with it. That's the truth.
I love the honesty. I think that's going to help so many people. Just like, you don't, it can get so you hear I remember at one point in my life, my morning schedule was still pretty intense, but it used to be even more because I'd have journaling and I'd have gratitude, I'd have this and I'd have that. And so much of it, what I've realized is becomes natural.
Yeah.
And so now it doesn't need to be this forced habit.
My workouts are perhaps for myself.
Exactly.
It's become so natural that I have to get a workout in a daily, 6 days a week. For example, I'll give you, last year, the start of 2024, I started the year by finishing a book and I was like, wow, because I hadn't finished a book in a really long time. I was like, wow, this year I'm going to finish at least 5 books. That was the last book I finished last year.
I love it.
It's not... Because I would always start a book and not finish it, So I read a couple of books on parenting and this and that and different things, but I would not finish the book. So I was like, I'm going to finish 5 books this year. didn't finish anything.
I love it.
So already, like, mid 2024, I was like, I'm already slacking. I'm already behind my goals. So I decided this year, I'm not going to make any resolutions or whatever. I'm just going to be. Just going to live, going to go about the day and do what comes naturally.
Yeah.
Because if it comes naturally, it'll stick.
Yeah.
And it'll become a part of your life anyway.
Yeah. I think you're going to relieve a lot of people of pressure and stress.
Yeah. I think it is important to acknowledge that not going through with new tasks that you set for yourself for self-growth is okay. As long as you're mentally conversing with yourself and actually being aware of the areas of growth, that kind of growth is enough. I'm very eager to grow in life, spiritually, mentally, physically, emotionally. But you can do that through listening and through conversation and through talking to yourself. Conversation with yourself. I think that's my non-negotiable. But I don't call that a daily practice.
No,
I think
that's great.
that's an hourly practice.
Yeah.
You
Yeah, that's constant.
That's constant, and that everybody does.
Yeah.
So that's also enough. But I do have to say, it's very therapeutic for me to watch other people go about their regime and their lives on Instagram Reels. When I see like Sunday resets and Saturday resets and people lighting a candle and cleaning their house. I love it. It's so relaxing. It just
And you can feel like you did it yourself.
Yes, I think that's what it is. It's a guilty pleasure because it feels like it was me, but it's actually not.
Yeah, you're just living vicariously through them. It's like ASMR as well. It's like that feeling.
Yeah.
Are you an ASMR fan?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's such a therapeutic healing process. Seeing people do things that are good for themselves, for sure. It's amazing. Alia, it's been such a joy talking to you today. Thank you so much for being so open, being so honest.
Thank you.
I think you made me laugh. You nearly made me cry. You nearly made yourself cry. It's been such a joy getting to know you more deeply, and I'm so grateful that my audience did as well. We end every show with a final 5.
Okay.
These questions have to be answered in 1 word to 1 sentence maximum. We do this with every guest. So, Aliabat, these are your final 5. The first question is, what is the best advice you've ever heard or received?
From my father, I'd rather be stupid than pretend to be intelligent.
When did he say that to you, and how has it impacted you?
He said this to me when I think I was wary of asking a question in class. And he said, you'd rather be stupid than pretend to be intelligent, because if you don't ask the question, you'll never learn. Especially today, I think there's such little patience for getting things wrong. So I'd rather be wrong than pretend like I have the answer, because if I have the answer, and I'd never know the reality, like I would never know the answer. And I don't mean this like I can Google the answer if I have to and pretend that I have the answer. But I'd rather not do that. I'm okay with not having the answers because I'll learn it when if I ask the question.
Yeah, I love that advice. Second question, what's the worst advice you've ever heard or received?
It was very simple. I think and that left a big impression on me. It was very simple. I was like, why can't I do that? It's because you're a girl. Somebody said that to me. So it didn't make sense to me. I think I was very young. It was a very simple thing about maybe going out somewhere or something. Why can't I do that? Because you're a girl.
Have you felt that continue in any part of
No.
your career? That was, that kind of judgment? And
like I said, not off late.
Yeah.
Not that I can remember in any specific way. I'm sure many people have, though. It's continuous, but not something that I've experienced off late that I can remember very clearly.
Yeah. Question number 3, how did you choose the name Raha?
I think so. This was when both Ranbir and I were, like eager parents asking, we have a family group, asking all the family members to give both boys and girls names. So we're prepared. So we can zero down on like a girl name and a boy name.
Yeah.
So there were multiple boy names and multiple girl names. And we really liked one boy name. We said, okay, this is a lovely boy name, which I'm not going to reveal now. And we said, okay, this name is lovely. Now, any more girl? And then my mother-in-law, Ranbir's mom, suggested, what about Raha? It'll go very well with the boy name as well, if you ever have a boy, and a girl. If you have a boy and girl both, it'll be a really good combination. And then she suggested a girl and girl combination as well. But Ranbir and I instantly loved Raha. So we had 2 names, just boy and girl, ready.
I love it. Does it have a meaning? Is there a meaning behind it?
Raha, yeah,
Yeah.
Raha means peace. It means joy. It means bliss.
Yeah.
All the things that she is to us.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I love that. It's a beautiful name. It's so unique as well.
Yeah.
It's really nice. Question number 4. If you had to define this chapter of your life in one word or one sentence, what would you call it?
Growth.
In what way?
You know, there's a feeling where you feel like your purpose is perhaps, because it's about on purpose. So your purpose is perhaps outward, you know,
Mhm.
need to achieve this, need to do that, need to. This chapter of my life is very inward, and not like I'm actively feel like there's a need for it. I'm just finding myself being way more interested in growth in the different facets of my life,
Mm.
as a parent, as a partner, as a friend, as a person, as a professional. I'm eager to grow,
Yeah,
not change anything majorly, but to really grow.
nice. What's something you wish people knew about you that maybe they don't know?
I think most people know I'm random and strange and all those things. But there's this, Friends has really impacted me, the TV show Friends. And there's this one episode where Phoebe is being proposed to by her partner. Oh my God, what's his name? Matt? Dan? One of them.
Yeah.
Her final partner.
Yeah.
And he said, Phoebe Buffay, I love you. You are this, you are that, and you're so wonderfully weird. I think that's the one thing that really stuck with me, is because I want people to accept all the wonderfully weird parts of them as I do of mine.
I love
You
that.
know? I don't think anybody's perfect or has everything in order or does everything correctly or like right or whatever. But I love being wonderfully weird. I
love
think
that.
I take pride in that.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. I've got 2 more questions. I've added a couple in because I got so curious again. What's your current dream? You said you're a dreamer at the start. What do you dream of now?
I'm a very passionate actor, professional, producer. I mean, I'm passionate about that. So I have dreams with regards to my work, which I don't think ever ends, and I don't think I'm ever comfortable. And I really like that about my mind,
Yeah.
So I had a film release that last year that didn't do really well. And that's given me a new vigor for a new dream, to try and do over. It's something that I feel very charged by. So that's the professional dream. And I think, again, to just soak up as many moments as I can with my family, with my daughter. And if possible this year, take a solo trip.
Nice.
Yeah. Alone for 4 days.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
love
I
that.
think Ranbir and I both discussed it, and we both were very excited about it. I said, we'll both like carve out a time where you take like 4 days on your own and I take 4 days on my own, and let's see what happens there.
Where did this come from?
I don't know. It came from us actually not doing it in a really long while. And both of us are like, we're homebodies and lone bodies. Like we like to lone around on our own. On our own.
Yeah.
And we both thrive like together, but individually as well.
Yeah. I love that. Any ideas where you'd go?
Not sure.
Okay.
We literally had this conversation
love-
2 weeks ago.
Any types of places that call to you? Like not even actual locations, but do you know what kind of
I'm a water
feel?
person. Like
Okay, got
I'm
it,
a
yeah.
fish Piscean. So I love the water. So it would have to be a beach location because I love the water and the sun. And I would take many books and I would read them and I would finish them, things
I
like
love
that.
that.
So that is the dream. Again, it's a great, very comfortable dream to have.
Yeah. Are you big into star signs?
Oh, huge.
Okay, so yeah, because you said that Raha's a Scorpion.
Yeah, Raha's a Scorpion.
You're a Pisces.
I'm a Piscean.
What date's your birthday?
15th of March.
15th of March.
I'm a
okay,
number 6.
Yeah.
And so is my daughter.
Yeah.
She's number 6, born on the year of 6.
Wow.
So I'm very into numbers, and thanks to Puneet, my makeup artist,
Yeah.
who is also my dear friend, she actually got me very influenced into this whole astrology, numbers
so
situation.
teach us something. Tell us.
No, it's not like I have I don't have the thing, but I know that
And what's Ranbir? He's
he's a Libran.
a-
Air.
okay, yeah.
I just love finding similarities between star signs and people and numbers, it'll just naturally happen that I get along really well with number sixes. My best friend Ayan is a number 6. 3, 6, and 9.
Explain how you get the 6 for those who don't know.
The birth date or the birth, like the day and the month and the year.
So if I'm born on the 6th,
You're born in the 6th?
6th September,
You're a number
I'm
6?
a Virgo, yeah. Does that make me a 6?
See, that's why we could have... Look,
Okay,
that's what
yeah.
I'm saying. That's why we
Okay.
could have a conversation.
Got it. Okay, yeah. So yeah, if I'm born on the 6th, I'm a 6.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, got it.
You're number 6.
Okay, got
and then there's your moon sign and your star sign and your sun sign, and then it's a little complicated. I'm like looking at Puneet right now because whatever.
Yeah,
but
I'm a Virgo.
Yeah, so a lot of my best friends are Virgos.
Oh yeah,
all
and
of
all my
them.
best friends are Pisces.
What are
my
you
sister's
saying?
Pisces. My best man from my weddings are Pisces. Like March is like all my best friends are basically born between 8th to 18th of March.
Oh, look,
Or-
see this?
Yeah.
And that's why we're having this conversation
Yeah, it's
like so
fascinating.
easily.
Yeah.
And apparently this year is very good for 3, 6, and 9.
That's what I had too. My
And
dad's into this
Pisceans
stuff.
and Cancerians and whatever. And Virgos.
And Virgos, yeah.
Sorry. So we are
Thank-
now
thank you,
getting into a
Puneet.
completely different conversation. But I'm very into this and I love finding similarities. Like I said, my brain loves information. So I love putting these things together and then there's an answer. It's
Yeah.
ready for you. Oh, this all makes sense.
Yeah, yeah.
It's all laid out for you.
I love it. When did this fascination start?
I think when I started working with Puneet and she would
Yeah.
talk a lot about it, so then I would listen and then I would. The minute I start seeing result in the similarities, I would be like, oh, wow, that's true. They're here. There's an example. Like Mr. Bansali, Sanjay Leela Bansali,
Yes.
he's a number 6 as well,
Oh wow.
and he's a Piscean,
Yeah, right.
and we got along like a house on fire.
Yeah.
So, and even like my best friends, they're all either 3s or 9s. I very rarely get along with the 4. No offense to a 4.
Yeah.
But I very rarely get along with the
Yeah,
4.
I found it shocking when I realized, because obviously I've moved as well. So like all my best friends, whether I was living in New York, London, or LA, are all born in March. Like it was fascinating to me. It was like, it just happened that way.
Yeah.
And then you're like, wait, how does that work? And so
So
I
my
don't know
sis-
as much about it, but
So my sister Pooja, she's also a number 6, born on the 24th of February.
yeah.
Also a Piscean. She sent me this book, and the month that I was born, and it's so weird. Again, it's all in the science, right? Because I keep saying I'm a dreamer. So she sent me this book of each week has like a certain theme to it. Somebody's the perfectionist, the balance and the something. Mine was the dancers and dreamers.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, this is so strange because this is not something that I've read anywhere. I've just said it. Maybe it was on a t-shirt or something I saw it and I liked it. I don't know. But it resonated with me.
Yeah.
So I like finding these similarities.
What are these other hidden passions, weird little quirks or things that you find
I
fascinating?
love planning.
Okay.
I
Like
have this-
vacations or work?
both.
Both. Okay.
I just
That's
plan.
not a solo trip.
I love planning. It deeply fascinates me and like satisfies me. There's like a hidden desire for me to be a wedding planner.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Have you ever planned it? Did you plan your own?
I did plan my own, yeah, of course. I think I did it really well.
What did you do really well? What did you nail?
I think the most important thing in a wedding is food.
I agree. And my wife would agree too.
Yeah. So I nailed the food. I didn't nail it.
Yeah.
My chef nailed it. As in the catering service that we hired. People want food and they want a great vibe.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it starts with food,
Yeah.
genuinely.
Yeah.
So, but just also like colors and combination and like, like different themes and different. So I really have an inner desire. Like, so
Yeah.
you see me getting all excited talking about
I
it.
know.
To be a
Just-
wedding
you look
planner.
onto
So I'm
life.
telling my sister, whenever she gets married, I'm planning her wedding and she's not hiring a wedding planner.
I love that. And yeah, planning your 4-day trip will be fun too.
Yeah, that would be. But actually, I might take a break from planning on that
Okay.
specific trip. But I think because it comes from my need to micromanage when there are multiple people, because right now for our New Year vacation, we were like 20 people, in Phuket, and I planned it from start to finish. And then when people are commending my planning and they're like, you did such a lovely job and all that, I'm like, thank you very much. It's the biggest compliment that I can receive.
I love it. Fifth and final question. If you could create one law that everyone in the world had to follow, what would it be?
I think to just be kind.
I love it. Alia Bhatt, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm so grateful.
Thank you
for
so
your
much.
generous time. I was looking forward to doing this for a long time. I'm glad we did it.
Yeah.
I look forward to connecting with you again in LA and
In your house.
yeah,
With food.
With food.
Yeah.
Yes, my wife, that's what she does. So
Yeah.
there's never any lack of food in our home.
I remember most moments in life over food.
Through food. Right. We should eat and do this next time. But no, look forward to welcoming you and Raha and Ranveer over. And thank you so much for your time
Thank
and
you.
energy.
Thank you.
Grateful. If you love this episode, I need you to listen to one of my favorite conversations ever. It's with the one and only Tom Holland on how to overcome your social anxiety, especially in situations where you're not drinking and everyone else is. We talk about his sobriety journey and so much more. He gets really personal. I can't wait for you to hear it. It's going to blow your mind.
The quote is, if you have a problem with me, text me. And if you don't have my number, you don't know me well enough to have a problem with me.